I found the diary on a Tuesday afternoon in March, tucked behind a loose board in my mother's closet. Blood stained the corner of the leather cover. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for old photo albums to surprise Mom for her 45th birthday. The board came free when I leaned against it, and there it was. A small leather book with worn edges and a tiny lock that had rusted open. I pulled it out, dust coating my fingers. The first page had Mom's handwriting from 20 years earlier. "If you're reading this, I'm sorry. Some secrets should stay buried." My hands trembled. What had my mother done? The diary started in the summer of 1985 when Mom was 25. She wrote about meeting someone at the county fair. "His name is Marcus. He has kind eyes and a smile that makes me forget everything else. Thomas suspects something, but he can't prove it." I froze. Marcus? My father's name was Thomas, but Mom was writing about both of them like she was seeing them at the same time. I kept reading, my heart pounding. Mom described secret meetings by the lake, lies told to cover her tracks, and a dangerous game she was playing. "I love them both," she wrote, "but I can only choose one, and that choice might destroy everything." I sat on the closet floor, my mind racing. My whole life, I'd known my parents had a stable marriage. They didn't fight. They were the perfect couple everyone admired. But this diary told a different story, one of betrayal and deception. I flipped through more pages. "Thomas proposed today," Mom wrote. "I said yes, but Marcus won't let me go. He threatened to tell Thomas everything. I begged him not to. If Thomas finds out, he'll leave me. My parents will disown me. I'll lose everything." Then, a week before her wedding, the entry that made my blood run cold. "Marcus gave me an ultimatum. Leave with him tonight or he'll destroy my life tomorrow." That night at dinner, I watched my parents carefully. Dad talked about work while Mom smiled and passed the potatoes. Everything seemed normal, but I couldn't shake what I'd read. After we cleared the dishes, I followed Mom into the kitchen. "Did you ever love anyone before Dad?" I asked suddenly. She dropped the plate she was holding. It shattered across the floor. "Why would you ask that, Alex?" Her voice shook. I shrugged, trying to seem casual. "Just wondering." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something flicker in her eyes, fear. "Some questions are better left unasked," she whispered. Then she turned away and started picking up broken pieces with trembling hands. I couldn't sleep that night. Questions haunted me like ghosts. Who was Marcus? Where was he now? And most terrifying, what had Mom done to keep him quiet? I pulled the diary from under my mattress. The entries after Mom's wedding were darker. "I haven't heard from Marcus in 3 days," she wrote. "I'm terrified. What if he went to Thomas? What if he told my parents? What if—" The entry ended abruptly. The next one was dated a week later. "It's done. Marcus is gone. He can never hurt me again. Thomas will never know. But God help me, I can see Marcus's face every time I close my eyes." My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the diary. Marcus was gone. What did that mean? Had he left town, or had something worse happened? I flipped frantically through the pages. 2 months later, I'm pregnant. I should be happy, but all I feel is guilt. Every time Thomas touches me, I think about what I did, about Marcus, about that night by the lake. The pregnancy she mentioned was me. I was born 9 months after that entry, my stomach twisted with nausea. I needed to know what happened to Marcus. I needed to know if my mother was capable of. I couldn't even finish the thought. It was too horrible to imagine. The next day after school, I drove to the library. If Marcus had disappeared in 1985, there might be news reports. I searched through old newspaper archives on the microfiche machine. My eyes burned from staring at the screen, but I kept going. Then I found it. August 15, 1985. "Local man missing. Family seeks answers." The article showed a photo of a young man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Marcus Bennett, 26 years old, had vanished without a trace. His car was found abandoned near the lake. Police suspected foul play but had no leads. No suspects. No body. The case went cold after 6 months of investigation. The lake. Mom had written about the lake in her diary. That night by the lake. I felt sick. I printed the article with shaking hands and drove home. Mom was in the garden tending her roses. She looked so peaceful, so normal. Could this woman have killed someone? Could my mother be a murderer? I walked up behind her. "Mom, do you remember Marcus Bennett?" She went rigid. The pruning shears fell from her hands. She turned slowly, her face pale as death. "Where did you hear that name?" Her voice was barely a whisper. I pulled out the newspaper article. "He disappeared in 1985, right before you married Dad." Mom's legs gave out. She collapsed onto the garden bench, staring at the article like it was a ghost made real. Alex, please, you don't understand. I sat beside her. Then help me understand what happened to Marcus. She was silent for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, she spoke, her voice hollow. Marcus was obsessed with me. When I told him I was marrying Thomas, he became violent. He said if he couldn't have me, no one would. He threatened to hurt Thomas. To hurt my family. Tears streamed down her face. The night before my wedding, he asked me to meet him by the lake. He said it was urgent. What happened at the lake? My voice sounded strange, distant. Mom wiped her eyes. Marcus had a gun. He said we would run away together or he would kill himself right there in front of me. I tried to calm him down, to reason with him, but he was beyond reason. She looked at me, her eyes desperate. He was waving the gun around, crying and yelling. And then she stopped, her whole body shaking. Then what? I demanded. Then he slipped. The bank was muddy from rain. He fell into the water. The gun went off. I tried to save him, Alex. I swear I tried. But the current was too strong. He went under and never came back up. I stared at my mother, trying to process her words. You watched him drown and you never told anyone. Mom grabbed my hands. I was terrified. I was 25 years old, about to get married. If I'd called the police, they would have asked questions. Why was I meeting another man alone the night before my wedding? Why didn't I call for help immediately? They would have suspected me. My life would have been ruined. I pulled my hands away. So you just left him there? You let his family wonder what happened to him for 20 years. Mom's face crumpled. I know what I did was wrong. I've lived with that guilt every single day. That night, I locked myself in my room and read the rest of the diary. Mom's entries after Marcus's death were filled with paranoia and guilt. I dream about him every night, she wrote. His hand reaching for me as he sinks beneath the water. Sometimes I think I should confess, turn myself in. But then I think of Thomas, of the baby growing inside me, of the life I'm building. I tell myself it was an accident, that there was nothing I could do. But deep down, I know the truth. I could have tried harder to save him. Part of me wanted him gone. I felt cold reading those words. My mother wasn't a murderer, but she'd let someone die. The next morning, I confronted Dad. Did you know about Marcus? He was drinking coffee, reading the paper. He looked up, confused. Marcus who? I threw the newspaper article on the table. He read it slowly, his expression never changing. When he finished, he set it down carefully. Your mother told me about this years ago, Alex, after you were born. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You knew she let someone die and you stayed with her. Dad's jaw tightened. It was an accident. Marcus was unstable. He could have hurt your mother. What happened was tragic, but it wasn't her fault. I stared at my father like I was seeing a stranger. How can you defend her? She left him in the water. She never called for help. Dad stood up, his voice rising. Because I love her, because she was young and scared and made a terrible mistake, because we all have things in our past we're not proud of. He took a breath, calming himself. Your mother is a good person who was put in an impossible situation. Yes, she should have called the police, but she panicked, and I forgave her for that a long time ago. I shook my head. I can't believe you both kept this from me. Dad's expression softened. You were never supposed to know. Some secrets are meant to protect the people we love. I spent the next week in a fog. I couldn't look at my parents the same way. Everything felt like a lie. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived in the mail. It was addressed to my mother, but the return address caught my eye, Bennett. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single page written in shaky handwriting. Victoria, I know what happened at the lake. I know you were there when my son died. I'm 80 years old now and dying of cancer. Before I go, I need to know the truth. Did you kill my Marcus? His mother, Eleanor Bennett. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Marcus's mother was still alive, and she wanted answers. I showed the letter to Mom. Her face went white. Oh God, Eleanor, I thought she was dead. She sank into a chair, the letter trembling in her hands. What are you going to do? I asked. Mom looked at me with hollow eyes. I don't know. If I tell her the truth, she might go to the police. There's no statute of limitations on negligent homicide. I could go to prison. The weight of that possibility hung in the air between us. But if I don't tell her, she'll die without knowing what happened to her son. Mom started crying. What should I do, Alex? For the first time in my life, I saw my mother as truly human, flawed, frightened, and desperate for guidance. I thought about it all night. Eleanor Bennett deserved to know what happened to her son, but did my mother deserve to go to prison for a 20-year-old accident? The next morning, I made a decision. I'm going to see Alina, I told Mom. She looked terrified. Alex, no, please. But I was already grabbing my keys. I found Alina's address in the phone book. She lived in a nursing home on the other side of town. When I arrived, a nurse led me to her room. Alina was tiny and frail, her skin like tissue paper, but her eyes were sharp and alert. You're Victoria's child, she said immediately. You have her eyes. I nodded, unable to speak. Alina gestured to a chair beside her bed. Sit, tell me about your mother. I sat down, my heart pounding. Mrs. Bennett, my mother wanted me to tell you something about Marcus. Alina leaned forward, her whole body tense with anticipation. I took a deep breath. Marcus and my mother were in love, but she was engaged to my father. The night before the wedding, Marcus asked her to meet him at the lake. Alina's eyes filled with tears. I knew he loved someone. He never told me her name. He was so sad those last few weeks. I continued, choosing my words carefully. Marcus had a gun that night. He was upset, threatening to hurt himself. Alina gasped. No, my Marcus wouldn't. I pushed on, needing to finish. He was waving the gun around. My mother tried to calm him down, but he slipped on the muddy bank. He fell into the water. The gun went off. My mother tried to reach him, but the current was too strong. He went under. I was crying now, the story pouring out of me. She tried to save him, Mrs. Bennett. She really did. But she panicked. She was young and scared. Instead of calling for help, she ran. She's lived with that guilt every day for 20 years. Alina was silent, tears streaming down her weathered face. Finally, she spoke. Did she love him? I nodded. Yes, she loved him very much. Alina reached out and took my hand with surprising strength. Thank you for telling me the truth. I always wondered if Marcus took his own life. I blamed myself for not seeing how much pain he was in. But knowing it was an accident, knowing he was loved, that brings me peace. She paused. I'm not going to the police, child. What good would it do now? My boy is gone. Your mother has suffered enough. We've all suffered enough. Relief flooded through me. Thank you, I whispered. Alina squeezed my hand. Tell your mother I forgive her. Tell her to forgive herself. Life is too short to carry that kind of weight. I promised I would. When I left, Alina was staring out the window, a small smile on her face. I drove straight home and found Mom in the kitchen. I went to see Alina Bennett, I said. Mom's face went pale. Alex, what did you? I cut her off. I told her everything, and she forgives you, Mom. She's not going to the police. She said to tell you to forgive yourself. Mom's legs buckled. I caught her and helped her to a chair. She sobbed deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from somewhere ancient inside her. I'm so sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. I held her while she cried, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe we could heal from this. Maybe our family could survive after all. That evening, Mom burned the diary. We stood together in the backyard, watching the pages curl and blacken in the fire pit. It's time to let go, she said. Time to stop living in the past. Dad joined us, wrapping his arms around both of us. We're going to be okay, he said firmly. We're a family. We'll get through this together. I wanted to believe him. Over the next few weeks, things slowly returned to a new kind of normal. We didn't talk about Marcus or the diary or what had happened at the lake, but something had shifted. We were more honest with each other now, more real. The perfect family facade was gone, replaced by something messier but more genuine. 2 months later, I got a call from the nursing home. Alina Bennett had passed away peacefully in her sleep. The nurse said she'd been holding a photo of Marcus and smiling. She seemed at peace at the end, the nurse told me, like she'd finally found the answers she was looking for. I went to Alina's funeral. It was small, just a few elderly friends and distant relatives. I sat in the back, watching as they lowered her casket into the ground next to her son's empty grave. There was a headstone for Marcus, even though his body was never found. I placed flowers on both graves before I left, whispering an apology to the wind. Mom was waiting for me when I got home. How was it? She asked quietly. Sad, I admitted, but also right somehow, she nodded. I wanted to go to pay my respects, but I thought it would be inappropriate. I sat beside her on the couch. Mom, can I ask you something? She tensed. Of course. I chose my words carefully. Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if Marcus hadn't died, if you'd chosen him instead? Mom was quiet for a long moment. Every day, she finally said. But then I look at you, at your father, at the life we've built, and I know that despite everything, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Dad came home that evening with takeout and flowers for Mom, just like he did every Friday. We ate together, the three of us, sharing stories about our week. It was ordinary and comfortable and real. After dinner, I helped Dad wash dishes while Mom played piano in the living room. "You know," Dad said quietly, "your mother blames herself for what happened to Marcus, but I blame myself too." I looked at him, surprised. "Why would you blame yourself?" He dried a plate slowly. "Because I knew she didn't love me the way she loved him. I knew, and I asked her to marry me anyway. I thought I could make her forget him. Maybe if I'd been less selfish, Marcus would still be alive." "That's not fair to yourself," I said. "You couldn't have known what would happen." Dad smiled sadly. "Maybe not, but I've learned that love isn't always enough. Sometimes it causes as much pain as joy." He looked toward the living room where Mom was playing a soft melody. "But I've also learned that choosing someone every day, even when it's hard, is its own kind of love. Your mother chose me 20 years ago. She's chosen me every day since. That means everything." I understood then that my parents' marriage wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Built on complicated choices, forgiveness, and a commitment to keep moving forward despite the ghosts of the past. A year passed. Life moved on the way it always does. I graduated high school and prepared for college. Mom continued teaching piano. Dad got promoted at work. We became experts at living with the truth while rarely speaking of it. Then one spring afternoon, while cleaning out the garage, I found a box of old photos. Most were from my childhood, birthdays, holidays, school events. But at the bottom was a photo I'd never seen before. It showed Mom at 25, laughing in the sunshine. Beside her was a young man with kind eyes. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, "Marcus and me, summer 1985, before everything changed." I stared at that photo for a long time. I brought the photo to Mom. She was in her garden tending her roses. When she saw what I was holding, she went still. "I forgot that photo existed," she whispered. She took it from me, her fingers tracing Marcus's face. "He was so young, we both were." She looked up at me. "Do you think I'm a terrible person, Alex?" I considered the question carefully. "I think you're a person who made mistakes, who was put in an impossible situation and did the best you could." I paused. "I think you've punished yourself enough." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "I miss him sometimes. Is that wrong?" I shook my head. "No, I think it's human." That night, Mom called Dad and me into the living room. She looked nervous but determined. "I need to say something to both of you." She took a deep breath. "I've been carrying guilt and shame for 20 years, but Alina forgave me before she died, and you two have stood by me despite knowing the truth." She reached for Dad's hand. "Thomas, you've loved me unconditionally even when I didn't deserve it. You've been patient with my nightmares and my sadness. You've never once thrown my past in my face." She turned to me. "And Alex, you could have hated me for what I did, but instead you helped me find peace." Her voice broke. "Thank you, both of you, for giving me a second chance." Dad pulled Mom into his arms. "You've always had my heart, Victoria, from the first moment I saw you." I joined their embrace, the three of us holding each other in the fading light. We were a family built on secrets and forgiveness, on choices made in desperation and love grown through adversity. We weren't perfect. Our foundation had cracks, but we were real and we were together. That night, I took the diary ashes from where Mom had stored them and scattered them in the garden. "Let them feed something beautiful," Mom said, watching the gray dust settle among her roses. And somehow, that felt like the right ending. Not perfect, but fitting. A family learning to bloom despite the darkness buried in their soil.